The Galactic Council Chamber was a marvel of engineering, a vast circular hall suspended above a dying star. Every species that had risen to interstellar prominence had a seat at its table. Their emissaries gathered to debate matters of war, trade, and survival. Yet among the 1,000 occupied chairs, one remained perpetually vacant, the seat reserved for Earth. It was a relic of an ancient invitation, extended long before most species in the chamber had achieved spaceflight. Humanity had been summoned to join the council, offered a position of prestige among the galactic elite, and they had never answered. At first, it had been dismissed as ignorance. Perhaps humans lacked the technology to receive the message, or they had destroyed themselves before they could reach the stars. But the centuries passed, and the seat remained. Ships that ventured too close to the solar system never returned. Probes ceased transmitting the moment they neared the planet's orbit. Attempts at direct communication were met with silence. And so, the seat remained, not as an invitation, but as a warning. Commander Alric Thane watched from the observation platform, his hands clasped behind his back. He had been summoned to the council under the pretense of an advisory role, but he knew better. His reputation as an explorer and intelligence operative made him valuable, but it was his recklessness that had led to this moment. He had dared ask a question too many times. Why was Earth silent? And why did that silence terrify the most powerful beings in the galaxy? A tremor in the air signaled the arrival of the council speaker. High Chancellor Orvin moved with the slow deliberation of a being burdened by knowledge. His elongated frame, draped in the traditional silver robes of his station, cast a long shadow across the polished floor. He regarded Alric with dark, unreadable eyes. "You understand why you were summoned?" Alric inclined his head. "I have my suspicions." "The council has reached a decision," Orvin said, his voice measured. "You will be permitted to go to Earth, to seek an answer." A murmur rippled through the assembly. For centuries, the unspoken rule had been clear. Earth was not to be touched, not to be provoked. The council had buried its curiosity beneath layers of fear, content to let the seat remain empty. Until now. Why the sudden change? Alric asked, keeping his voice neutral. A being from Akhet Dominion, reptilian and draped in ceremonial armor, leaned forward. Because the balance is shifting. Forces beyond this council seek to claim what humanity has abandoned. If we do not understand Earth's silence, we cannot predict what comes next. Alric had expected as much. Rumors of an emerging power, one that spoke in whispers of forgotten wars and hidden empires, had reached even the farthest outposts of the galaxy. Some believed it to be a rogue faction, others a civilization that had remained hidden for eons. But Alric had seen fragments of evidence, coded transmissions buried in ancient archives. The signatures all led back to one place. Earth. He met Orvin's gaze. "I assume I'm not expected to return?" "If you do, you will bring answers," Orvin said, "or you will not come back at all." A lesser man might have hesitated. Alric merely exhaled, the ghost of a smile flickering across his lips. It was not the first time he had been sent to his presumed death. "I'll leave within the hour." Orvin studied him for a long moment, then turned away, signaling the end of the meeting. As the council chamber dissolved into quiet discussion, Alric stepped back toward the observation platform, where his ship awaited in the docking bay below. "Commander Thane." The voice was low, edged with something unplaceable. He turned to see a figure standing in the shadow of the chamber's great columns, an old warrior, clad in battle-worn armor. His face was lined with age, his left eye covered by an archaic metal implant. Alric recognized him instantly. General Raoul Vec had fought in more wars than the history books recorded, a strategist whose name was spoken with equal parts respect and dread. He had been one of the few who had studied humanity's past, before the records had been sealed. "You have something to tell me?" Alric asked. Vec's expression was unreadable. "Only this, you assume you are seeking an answer." Alric frowned. "And—" The general's voice dropped to a whisper. "You should be asking whether the answer wants to be found." Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Alric remained still for a long moment, then exhaled sharply. He had expected the council's fear. He had not expected to share it. The Valiant drifted through the void, its hull a sliver of shadow against the endless sprawl of stars. Alric Thane sat in the pilot's chair, his fingers hovering over the controls, though the ship needed little guidance. The journey was straightforward, on a map, at least. In reality, no one had successfully crossed into the Sol system in recorded history. The silence of deep space was deceptive. He had traveled the uncharted edges of the galaxy, slipped past war fleets, and infiltrated forbidden sectors, but this mission felt different. It wasn't the risk of death that unsettled him. It was the absence of any information beyond half-truths and ghost stories. Ares 9, the ship's onboard intelligence, pulsed to life with a flicker of blue light. Course locked. Estimated arrival, 72 standard hours. Long-range scans indicate minimal activity in the outer system. Minimal, Alric echoed. Define. No active transmissions. No recorded traffic. No evidence of artificial satellites beyond the expected planetary debris. However, the AI hesitated, which was unusual. The absence of interference is anomalous. Given historical data, it is statistically improbable that an inhabited world would lack detectable emissions. Alric leaned back, watching the starfield shift through the viewport. You're saying it's too quiet. Ares 9 processed for a fraction of a second. Yes. That was confirmation enough. Space was never silent. Even dead worlds carried echoes, background radiation, stray comm signals, the aftershock of solar winds. But Earth, a world that should have been teeming with life, emitted nothing. He had studied what little records remained. Earth had once, unlike any other pre-spacefaring civilization, reckless and ambitious. Then, at the threshold of interstellar expansion, it had simply withdrawn, as if it had seen something in the dark and decided that isolation was preferable to discovery. Alric ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. Bring up classified records. Cross-reference with Council archives. Ares 9 hesitated again. Commander, accessing restricted data will trigger security protocols. Unauthorized retrieval of classified files is considered an act of espionage. Then it's a good thing I'm already committing treason, Alric muttered. Do it. A flicker of light as data streamed across the display. He watched as layers of encryption unraveled, revealing fragmented reports, buried transmissions, and entire sections of history redacted beyond recognition. One phrase appeared repeatedly: containment protocols. The term was never explained, only referenced in conjunction with Earth's isolation. One log, barely intact, mentioned a failed diplomatic attempt nearly 500 years ago. A fleet of council emissaries had been sent to establish contact. They had never returned. No debris, no distress signals, only silence. Expand logs related to the missing fleet, Alric ordered. The response came in the form of corrupted data. Whatever had happened, someone had gone to great lengths to erase it. Ares 9 processed for several moments. Recovered a partial transmission fragment. Static filled the cockpit, resolving into a voice warped by interference. No survivors, entire system locked, not what we expected. They are waiting. The feed cut abruptly. Alric tapped his fingers against the console, jaw tightening. Ares, if you were an AI programmed to assess risk, what would you rate our survival probability? Data is insufficient for precise calculation. Guess. A longer pause this time. 17%. Alric exhaled a short laugh. Could be worse. For the next 2 days, he watched the void stretch and shift around him, the distant glow of stars indifferent to his passage. As they neared the edge of the Sol system, the ship's instruments flickered with interference, as though space itself was resisting their intrusion. Then, the first anomaly appeared. Ares 9 flickered. Unidentified structure detected. Alric straightened. Location: 3 million kilometers from Sol's heliopause. Object is stationary. No thermal readings. No electromagnetic signatures. Visual scan indicates an artificial construct of unknown origin. Alric activated the forward cameras, and the image filled the screen. It was a station, at least it had been once. Its surface was scarred and pitted, hull plating stripped away in places to reveal skeletal framework. The architecture was unfamiliar, But something about the damage pattern unsettled him. It wasn't from weapons fire. It was as if something had torn through it, methodical and deliberate. A derelict? Ares 9 processed. Insufficient data. However, based on decay rates, the station has been abandoned for approximately 400 years. The same time frame as the missing fleet. Run a scan for any remaining transmissions, Alric ordered. There was a pause. Then, one signal detected. His pulse quickened. Play it. At first, only static. Then a voice. Faint. Distorted. If you have come seeking answers, turn back. A pause, filled with crackling interference. We are not missing. We are waiting. The transmission ended. Alric stared at the screen. He had expected silence. Expected ruins. But this, Ares 9's voice cut through his thoughts. Incoming gravitational disturbance detected. Course adjustment required. Alric's hands moved on instinct, adjusting thrusters as a shift in the surrounding space registered on the ship's instruments. A ripple, as though the very fabric of reality had flexed. Then, for the first time since humanity's withdrawal, the silence of the Sol system was broken. A signal, no, a pulse, emanated from Earth's direction. Not a greeting, not a warning. A lock. Ares 9's interface dimmed as the AI recalculated. We are no longer alone. Alric's fingers tightened on the controls. His breath slow and measured. He had expected to find Earth. He had not expected Earth to notice him first. The Valiant shuddered as it crossed into Earth's orbit, instruments flickering with interference. Alric Thane gripped the controls, every instinct screaming at him to turn back, but he had come too far for hesitation. The planet below was deceptively serene. Ocean stretched in endless sapphire swaths. Forests blanketed vast continents, and sprawling cities stood silent beneath the golden sun. And yet, there were no transmissions, no movement in the skies, no beacon welcoming or warning outsiders. Ares 9's voice broke the quiet. Atmospheric anomalies detected. Scans indicate subterranean infrastructure. Surface-level activity is minimal, but heat signatures suggest extensive underground habitation. Alric narrowed his eyes. Humanity had not vanished. They had simply gone beneath. Before he could respond, the ship's systems locked. Engines powered down, controls seized, and alarms blared as an external force seized the vessel. Ares 9's interface flickered wildly. Unknown override detected. We are being pulled in. Gravity took hold, and the Valiant spiraled toward the planet. Alric fought the controls, but the descent was no longer his to command. Through the viewport, the vast ruins of an ancient metropolis rose to meet him. Steel towers weathered by time, streets swallowed by nature. Yet as he fell deeper, structures beneath the surface became visible. Fortifications, hangars, tunnels lined with lights. Earth's true civilization had not died. It had simply been buried. The ship jolted as it was guided into a cavernous docking bay, hidden beneath the ruins. The moment it touched the platform, restraints clamped over the hull. The silence pressed in. Then movement. Figures emerged from the shadows, armored and armed. Their presence was unlike anything Alric had encountered before. Not soldiers awaiting orders, but predators assessing prey. The leader stepped forward. His armor was a dark alloy, marked with symbols Alric did not recognize. His face was lined, eyes sharp with the weight of experience. He moved with absolute certainty, as if nothing in the universe could touch him. "Disarm yourself," the man ordered. His voice was steady, absolute. Alric slowly raised his hands, scanning for any insignia, any sign of allegiance. There was none. These were not remnants of a fallen people. They were something else entirely. "My name is Commander Alric Thane," he said carefully. "I come on behalf of the Galactic Council." The soldier's expression didn't change. "We know who you are." That sent a chill through him. Before he could respond, another figure approached, taller, clad in battle-worn armor. His presence commanded instant attention. General Lucian Graves. Alric recognized the name from fragments of classified records. A ghost, a legend, a man who should have died centuries ago. "You're not the first to come looking for answers," Graves said, "but you might be the last." Alric met his gaze. Then tell me, why has Earth remained silent? Why does the Council fear you? Graves studied him for a moment, then gestured for the guards to stand down. Walk with me. They moved through the underground corridors, past hangars filled with ships unlike anything in Council fleets. Weapons lined the walls, refined, efficient, built for annihilation. These were not relics of a fallen empire. They were preparations for a war that had never ended. The Council tells itself a lie, Graves said, that we vanished, that we stagnated, that we destroyed ourselves. He paused, looking at Alric with something almost resembling pity. The truth is simpler. We left. Alric frowned. Left? Not in the way you think. Graves gestured around them. When the Council first reached out to us, we were on the brink of expansion, but we saw what was waiting in the stars. We saw what the Council pretends doesn't exist. Alric's pulse quickened. What did you see? Graves exhaled slowly. A war. One fought long before the Council formed, before most of their species even left their home worlds. His expression darkened. We weren't the first to rise, and we weren't the first to be hunted. The words settled heavily between them. Who? Alric asked, though he already suspected the answer. The ones who came before us. Graves said, the ones who built the ruins scattered across the galaxy, whose cities now serve as cautionary tales. He stopped before a vast display screen where ancient star maps flickered with data points. They were more advanced than the Council, more advanced than us, and yet they disappeared. Alric's mind raced. The Council had always dismissed such theories. Civilizations rising and falling was a natural cycle, nothing more. But if humanity had uncovered something more, something the Council had refused to acknowledge, why hide? He asked. Graves turned to him. Because we knew that if we kept expanding, if we took that seat in the Council, we would be noticed. And if we were noticed, we would be the next to disappear. The weight of the revelation settled in Alric's chest. Humanity had not retreated out of fear. They had made a calculated decision to erase themselves before something else could do it for them. And now, Alric asked, are you still hiding? Graves' expression hardened. No. Alric felt a shift in the air, the quiet hum of something long restrained now stirring. The war never ended, Graves said. The Council thinks they rule the galaxy. They don't. They're just the latest in a long line of civilizations waiting for their turn to fall. His gaze locked onto Alric's. We've spent centuries preparing, watching, waiting. He stepped closer. And now something has changed. Alric swallowed. What? Graves looked past him, toward the vast underground fortress stretching beyond them. They've started looking for us again. The finality in his voice sent a chill down Alric's spine. He had come seeking answers, but the truth was far worse than he had imagined. Humanity had not been missing. They had been preparing for a war the rest of the galaxy refused to see. Alric stood in silence, the weight of Graves' words settling over him like a shroud. The war never ended. The Council, with all its authority and arrogance, was nothing more than a temporary occupant in a galaxy built atop the bones of forgotten empires. His mind raced through the implications. If what Graves said was true, if something older, something unseen, had been hunting civilizations before humanity ever reached the stars, then Earth's silence had not been an act of cowardice. It had been a strategy, a survival mechanism. But now, that strategy was over. A klaxon sounded through the underground fortress, deep and resonant. Soldiers moved with precision, armor gleaming under the artificial light. No panic, no hesitation. These men had been waiting for this moment. Graves turned, his expression unreadable. It's begun. Alric followed as he strode through the command corridors. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing movement beyond the Sol system. Strange distortions rippled across the mapped starfields, shadows where no celestial body should be. What am I looking at? Alric asked. Ares 9, still linked to his personal interface, answered before Graves could. Localized gravitational anomalies, unidentified mass signatures appearing at the edge of the system. A pause. They are not Council ships. Graves nodded grimly. No, They're not. Alric exhaled sharply. Then who? Graves gestured to the largest display, where the anomalies grew more defined. 12, 100, more. Shapes flickered in and out of visibility, as if shifting between realities. No fixed form, no conventional structure. This is why we stayed hidden, Graves said. This is what the others refused to believe existed. The shadows solidified into something tangible. Not ships in the traditional sense, but vast constructs, writhing and angular, exuding an unnatural presence that sent a chill through Alric's core. His instincts, honed through years of war and diplomacy, told him one undeniable truth. This was not an invasion. It was a culling. A voice crackled over the command network. Outer sentries are dark. No distress calls. No wreckage. Alric's jaw tightened. They were erased. Graves' gaze didn't waver. That's how they fight. No negotiations. No warnings. Just silence. The weight of centuries pressed down on Alric. He thought of the Council, of its endless bureaucracy, its belief that it had mapped the entire galaxy, that its laws and treaties meant something in the grand scheme of the universe. But those laws had been written in ignorance. The real war had always been waged in the dark, beyond the reach of their complacent rule. And now, the dark had come for them. Graves turned to him. You wanted to know why we never took our seat in the Council? His voice was steady, but there was something colder beneath it. Because the Council is already dead. They just don't know it yet. Alric clenched his fists. Then why reveal yourselves now? Why not let them fall and stay hidden? Graves studied him, as if measuring something unseen. Because hiding only works until it doesn't. He gestured to the growing formations in the void. They found us anyway. Alric felt the enormity of the moment settle over him. Humanity had not been waiting to fight for the Council. They had been waiting for the war to reach them again. And now it had. Another transmission came through, this time clear, strong. A single message, delivered across all frequencies. You should not have been found. The voice was neither human nor alien. It was something else. Something beyond. Alric's pulse pounded. What do we do? Graves turned to command table, where Earth's fleet began to mobilize. Ships long hidden beneath the surface now rose, their designs unlike anything Alric had ever seen. Weapons calibrated not for skirmishes, but for extermination. We end the cycle, Graves said. Alric watched as the first shots lanced through the void, striking at the approaching dark. The war that had never ended was beginning again. And this time, humanity would not remain in the shadows. This time they would fight. The first salvo struck, like lightning against the void. Beams of searing energy lanced outward, illuminating the darkness where the enemy lurked. Earth's fleet, hidden for centuries beneath the surface, now emerged in full force. Sleek warships, bristling with weapons designed for an enemy that had never before been acknowledged. Alric stood on the command deck of the Valiant, his eyes fixed on the growing battle. The ships of humanity moved with precision that defied their long absence from the galactic stage. Every maneuver was calculated. Every strike meant to maim, not merely repel. There was no fear in their movements, no hesitation. Only the cold, unrelenting efficiency of a people who had spent generations preparing for this moment. Across the vast blackness of space, the enemy revealed itself. The shifting anomaly solidified, warping from flickering shadows into something tangible. Their forms were grotesque, twisted amalgamations of jagged metal and writhing, semi-organic plating. No single shape remained constant. Their hulls seemed to shift, as if the very concept of form was an afterthought. And they did not fire. Instead, they advanced. Alric's pulse pounded. They're not returning fire. Graves' voice cut through the comms. They don't need to. The first human warships engaged, launching kinetic rounds and high-yield plasma at the advancing entities. Explosions erupted across the void, illuminating the battlefield in stark flashes. Some of the creatures broke apart, shattering into fragments that twisted and reformed, as if death was a temporary inconvenience. And then the silence broke. The enemy responded, not with weapons, but with something deeper, something that resonated through the very fabric of space. A pulse rippled outward, unseen yet felt in the marrow of every soldier's bones. The comms erupted in static. Ship systems flickered, and for a brief moment, reality itself seemed to distort. Alric clenched his teeth as the Valiant shuddered. What the hell was that? Ares 9's voice was strained, as though even the AI was struggling against an unseen force. Interference detected. It is not electromagnetic, not gravitational. A hesitation. It is affecting cognition. Alric turned sharply to his bridge crew. Several men clutched their heads, expressions twisted in pain. Others stood frozen, eyes unfocused, as if something unseen had reached into their minds. Graves' voice cut through the comms again, sharp and commanding. Recalibrate neurodampeners. Now! The command was met with swift action. Across the fleet, countermeasures activated, bursts of controlled electromagnetic pulses designed to stabilize brain activity. The fog lifted, but not entirely. They're testing us, Graves said grimly, seeing how we react. Alric exhaled sharply. Then we show them. Humanity's fleet adapted, shifting formations, deploying countermeasures. The ships moved with a purpose that belied their long absence from war. They had studied the ruins of fallen civilizations, dissected the failures of those who had come before, and now they would prove they had learned. The first enemy vessel, if it could be called that, came into range. It loomed before the Valiant, a twisting, pulsing mass of unnatural metal and writhing tendrils. The sheer wrongness of its existence sent a primal chill down Alric's spine. Ares 9 calculated firing solutions, but Alric overrode it. He had seen enough. Fire everything. The Valiant unleashed its arsenal. Plasma torpedoes, railgun slugs, concentrated particle beams. All converged on the abomination. The impact was catastrophic. The entity contorted, its form unraveling in a soundless scream that echoed through the ship's systems as pure data corruption. It writhed, its structure collapsing on itself before it finally imploded into nothingness. For the first time, the enemy hesitated, and that was all humanity needed. Across the battlefield, Earth's fleet pressed forward. They did not fight for territory nor conquest. They fought with the knowledge that they were the last line between survival and oblivion. Graves' voice carried across the command channels. No retreats. No negotiations. They've come to finish what they started. A pause. We finish it first. Alric tightened his grip on the controls. He had come searching for answers. Instead, he had found a war older than the stars themselves. And now there was no turning back. The battle for humanity had begun.